All right, Tom, you on?
I am.
Oh, good. You can hear me. So you had a floor speech this morning. Oh, first, real quick, for our show, I literally have nothing written down. I do want to talk about the redistricting. I think that's on January 19th. Just kind of the impacts of that. What are your thoughts on that? And then does that impact you? And if so, in what way? But you had a floor speech this morning, right?
I did.
And that's why you couldn't. Okay. So I want to talk about that. I know it was on C-SPAN, but I'm at the studio, so I don't have cable access here. That's at home. So I couldn't watch it. So I kind of want to ask what that was about, because that's pretty cool.
Love to talk about it.
Sweet. Anything else that you want to make sure that we discussed?
Hey, we should. I'm going to be in Siren tonight at a Burnett County law enforcement meeting. We
Oh,
should
yeah.
talk about that briefly.
Sure.
Yes.
I was asked to be the keynote speaker, but we couldn't make it. So, yeah. Yeah, you know what? Let's get into that right now, but we need to get going.
Zero.
Zero. There we go. Good morning, everybody. Wisconsin's 7th Congressional District Representative Tom Tiffany is my very special guest today, Thursday, January 13th, 2021. For DrydenWire.com, I'm Ben Dryden, and you're watching Breakfast with Tiffany, a monthly live video podcast with our representative where we discuss all things going on in D.C. and in the 7th Congressional District. Special thank you to Shell Lake Police Chief Dave Wilson for joining Barron County Sheriff Chris Fitzgerald and I earlier this week for our Positive Tuesday with Ben and Fitzy show. You can watch a recording of that and all of our shows on our website at DrydenWire.com, our YouTube channel, and our Facebook page. And join me next Thursday, 1 week from today, when I'll be chatting with Democratic candidate in Wisconsin's U.S. Senate race, Tom Nelson. And finally, mark it on your calendar now, Northwest Wisconsin's very own Chris Cruzy will be joining Fitzy and I on January 25th for a live show. But today we're chatting with Congressman Tom Tiffany. Tom, it's a pleasure. Good morning. How are you, sir?
Man, you got quite a stable of guests that are coming up.
Yeah. Having Chris Cruzy on, we're so excited for, because, you know, I'm sure you're aware of who he is. But I talked to him the other day, and the fact that he was still, I said, why aren't you like living in Nashville or LA or, you know, all these places? Because he's kind of a big deal. And he's like, I like the, you know, Barron County. I like Northwest Wisconsin. I like it here. I can fly to those places and do my stuff, but I like coming home here. I got, you know, family. I want to raise people here. You got to love Northwest Wisconsin, man.
Chris and I are like this on that, and I've never met Chris, but we're like that in this regard. So as you can see, I'm out in D.C. right now, and we're back in next week. Also, we're here this week. We'll be here next week, but I'm coming home over the weekend because I always come home for the weekend from Washington, D.C. There's no place like northern Wisconsin.
Well, you see, you say northern. See, I specifically said northwestern Wisconsin.
Oh,
You're from
right.
northeastern Wisconsin, and I'm just saying, it's nicer over here in northwestern Wisconsin.
Okay. Well, that's why I'm coming to Siren tonight.
Yeah, so you had mentioned that right before we went live here. What is that about? Where you're going? And I don't know, can other people attend that?
Yeah, so it's a Burnett County law enforcement meeting that they've put together. And Lisa Slater put the thing together. And they're bringing in Sheriff Mark Lamb from out in Pinal County in Arizona. Mark Lamb is a legend out in Arizona, and just a terrific guy, wonderful sheriff, tells the story of what it's like being a sheriff in Arizona, as well as in America at this point. And I really look forward to joining everybody there at the Law Enforcement Center in Siren.
Yeah. Hey, so before I get to what happened with the reason we couldn't go live at 8:30 because you had a floor speech, I just want to point out, I'm so proud of you. Looking at you right now, you got this suit and this tie, and you have the digital Bluetooth earbuds in. You're all fancy looking, and we're streaming it, and it's live, and everything's going well. I miss those days of you streaming like from your basement at your house. Everything went horribly wrong all the time. You'd freeze all the time. Look at you all grown up.
That'll be next month.
Okay. All right, so you had to be on. Oh, good morning, Karen, and of course, Shell Lake Police Chief Dave Wilson. Looks like he will be going there as well, so you can say hi to Dave Wilson. So you had a floor speech this morning at 8:30. What was that about? What was it for?
So, in regards to a voting rights bill, it's a major piece of legislation that is before the House today, and we're going to vote on it this morning. It
Oh.
goes over to the United States Senate then, and everything we understand, we don't expect it to pass because it has to go through the whole cloture process, which is some of the stuff that the Senate does in terms of procedure. And but it's going to pass the House today. But it's really interesting, and my comments reflected this. They used a NASA bill as the vehicle to be able to pass one of the most sweeping legislation, voting reform pieces of legislation ever in the history of the Congress. And they went and took a NASA bill and hijacked it for that reason. I closed my speech by saying, Houston, I think we got a problem.
Clever. Yeah. I'm sure it'll be available because I even went online this morning to see if, since, again, I don't have our internet here or in terms of cable, but you can watch that stuff afterwards, right? Because I went online, but you had to pay for a subscription. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to pay to watch you do a 5-minute thing. Sorry, I support you, but, I'm not going to.
There's limits.
Yeah, there's a point. So hopefully you can watch that later on, or maybe you're going to put it on your Twitter or Facebook page, maybe?
Yeah, we'll probably post that speech both on the Tiffany Telegram. You'll find the link there, and you'll be able to find it in a variety of ways. You'll be able to find it on C-SPAN also. They have all these things that are recorded. But, really, just to say a couple words in regards to the bill. So now you taxpayers are going to have to pay for elections, pay for our elections as elected officials. We could get up to $7 million under this bill to fund our re-elections. That is crazy. Us politicians do not need to go on welfare paid by the taxpayers, paid for by our listeners. That's one of the provisions in the bill. And they are claiming all these things. This will stop voter suppression and all the rest. When you look at the bills that have been going through state legislatures, like Georgia, they actually have enhanced the ability to vote in many ways while making it tough to cheat. And that's been the whole mantra that we've had from the beginning, and this is what I say, is make it easy for people to vote, make it hard to cheat. This will make it so that more people can cheat. Because amongst other things, we have photo ID here in Wisconsin. It would wipe out photo ID at the ballot box, which most people, Democrats and Republicans, support at this point. So anyhow, we're sure hoping it's going to pass in the House here this morning. But I hope the Senate is wiser than us and puts a stop to it, because we should not federalize elections, leave it in the state's hands.
Could you go into that a little bit? I don't understand. $7 million that you will get for elections. Could you elaborate on this? I'm not really getting it.
Yeah, so under this bill, you will qualify for federal funds for your election.
Who's you?
And so me,
Got it.
Representative Tom Tiffany, I would qualify for up to $7 million from the taxpayer, which that does not happen at this point. We would qualify for up to $7 million as elected officials when we run for re-election, and it would come out of the federal treasury. That has not happened before, and this is what's being proposed in this partisan bill.
And what's the obviously there's proponents for this. What's their argument to this? Why this should be done?
Yeah, their argument would be that this is only fair. Everyone should be able to, regardless of who's running, they should be able to get money to be able to run their campaigns. And it goes back to this whole thing, the word that's being used by Democrats regularly here over the last year, equity. Everything should be equal for people, in this case, that want to run for office. And I just disagree with that. Yeah. I mean, you are putting elected representatives on welfare. They are taking money from the federal treasury as a result of that. That's not how it should work.
Yeah, and I obviously we don't want to spend too much time on this, but one follow-up here. So you're saying $7 million. Is that per person or total?
Yeah, per candidate.
The taxpayers pay.
Taxpayers pay. You, the taxpayer, the people listening, you pay.
Yeah, that doesn't, I don't know. I guess, usually, so, how you explain it, when I hear it, I'm like, that doesn't really, I'm not really comfortable with that. But I guess I have to look into that more, because so far, not a big fan.
Yeah, and I mean, you have the other provisions in there that eliminate photo ID. Photo ID has been one of the best things to make sure we have accountability at
Hmm.
elections. Make sure that it's easy to vote, hard to cheat. We've seen people in the past that have not been who they say they are, and so it shouldn't work that way.
Yeah, when I used to, I'm dating myself here. In my early 20s, I lived in the Twin Cities and I managed Blockbuster stores. Back when there were
Yep.
Blockbuster stores. Well, see you later. It,
No, no, keep talking.
okay, I'll keep talking. No, you're fine. Oh, that's right. You got those fancy, Bluetooth ones. Anyway, so when I was running the Blockbuster stores, we had to have, in order to get a membership at Blockbuster, if I recall, I think it was like a free membership. But we just need to know in case you rent a movie and you don't bring it back, how to get hold of you. And you always had to have two forms or two pieces of mail with your address, your name and your address of where you live, and a photo ID. Didn't need to be a driver's license. And one of the places I ran was down in Stadium Village, not too far from the U of M campus. And it was kind of the close to the inner city-ish stuff, right? And a lot of these individuals, for whatever reason, didn't have a valid driver's license. But a couple blocks away, you could go and get an identification card. And that's fine too. It just needed to be a photo ID and a piece of mail showing that you live where you live. And that was just to rent a movie. I kind of feel like that's not a stretch to say in order to vote, just some basic things.
Hey, you should be able to prove who you are when you go into the polls. I actually voted for photo ID in the state legislature back when I was in the state legislature. And the thing that we heard at that point is that this is going to suppress the vote. People aren't going to vote. It'll keep people from voting. We made it so that people do have the ability. Let's say you don't have a driver's license. They could go get an ID from the DMV to be able to take to the polling place. And it did not suppress the vote. In fact, when you look at turnout since then in Wisconsin, consistently, there are more people voting. So that
Hmm.
has really proven that photo ID does work.
All right. So while I was waiting for you patiently ish this morning to jump back on after your floor speech, I did just Google your name and hit news. I put Tom Tiffany on Google and hit news, and a few things came up about redistricting. I didn't read any of them. I just saw some of the headlines in the Google thing, which is perfect because I wanted to talk about that. I know this is not a Washington, D.C. thing per se. It's a Wisconsin thing, but that I think would impact your district in the 7th Congressional District as well. That it looks like on January 19th, there is going to now be, in terms of the redistricting, is going to be on the 19th. And I think everyone's holding their breath and hoping that this is going to get resolved on the 19th. Because, dude, we're getting really close to people are like waiting to announce if they're going to be running for office based on the results of what is our new maps. What do they look like? I'm sure you're familiar with it, again, because I Googled it, and it looks like you are. What are your thoughts on that? And do you think this will be resolved in the 19th?
So, first of all, you bring up a really important point. It is important that this get resolved because
Now.
on April 15th, that's when nomination papers go out for these offices, Assembly, State Senate, the federal offices that are also up, governor, lieutenant governor, all of those that are up this year. And so it is really important that it be resolved. Let's go through the process at this point. The legislature has passed a redistricting bill, passed both the Senate and the Assembly, and then Governor Evers vetoed it. It is a state function redistricting in Wisconsin. And under the Constitution in Wisconsin, it is the legislature's job to write those maps. They did. The governor vetoed them. And then the state Supreme Court said, if there's not agreement between the governor and the legislature, then we will take this up and decide what maps we think are most appropriate. And that's what's going to happen now next week when the state Supreme Court will hear oral arguments in regards to the redistricting case. And there's a variety of people that have, or organizations and people that have sent maps forward. The state legislature map will be considered. Governor Evers put forward a map, and as well as others. And then the Supreme Court will probably decide from one of those maps, from what we understand, which map will be in place for redistricting. And we expect that answer to come anywhere 2 to 4 weeks after those oral arguments next week.
Oh.
Hopefully by mid-February, This will be resolved. And then, like you said, there's a lot of people deciding if they're going to run. Some people, their homes will change with redistricting. It has to, in order for, if you're in a district, let's say an assembly district, and you've lost population, then you have to go get more people, because that's the first and most important thing. Every district has to have, every assembly district, every House of Representatives district, every Senate district, they have to have an equal number of people at the end of the redistricting process here every 10 years. So that's the first and foremost thing. The thing that the state Supreme Court said is that we're going to adopt a least changes approach. We believe as a court, and I'm paraphrasing here, that it isn't ultimately our responsibility. It's the legislature's responsibility. And we're just going to make sure that they're following the law with the map that they're putting forward. And but they said the main thing that we're looking at is, or the major criteria is to have a least changes approach.
Sure.
And then they will decide from there. And by the way, I, as a congressman, do not have a vote on that. This is a state issue. It is not a federal issue, unless this voting rights bill that I spoke on this morning, which would take away redistricting and move it to the federal level, it is still a state responsibility. And so I do not have a vote on the redistricting piece of legislation.
I want to circle back here. You had said that Evers, I want to make sure I understand this correctly, that he had proposed his map, but there was two. Which one is kind of being considered? There was and maybe it wasn't technically an Evers map, but there was a People's Map Commission, something, and the redistricting, what that map looked like was just, like, I remember looking at it going, what is this? Like, this isn't even close to what I'm used to seeing, which that's fine, new ideas and big ideas aren't necessarily bad. But then there was a new one that I don't want to say Evers because I don't recall if it was just like governor or his team or somebody. Now then there was an updated version of that, which wasn't quite as, didn't change as much. Which one are they considering, or both? Because I think there's a few, right?
The original one that they referred to as the People's Map, which was actually the governor's map, that was considered by the legislature. It came up for a vote in the state assembly, and there were 17 Democrats that voted against the governor's map. And in particular, there were people of Latino descent down in the Milwaukee area that said, this will disenfranchise us as minorities. So even Democrats rejected the People's Map, which was touted for so long, for a year by Governor Evers. They rejected that map. Republicans and Democrats rejected those maps. The other thing that map, so first of all, it did not meet the Voting Rights Act. It would have disenfranchised minorities, which is a huge no-no when the federal courts look at these maps. So that's what Governor Evers' original map did. But it also divided far more municipalities and counties than the state legislature's map that they passed. So there were so many flaws in it that even Democrats were voting against it in the end. And after the Supreme Court said, we're going to adopt a least changes approach to reviewing these maps, then Governor Evers put forward a different map than the People's Map.
You had to have tell us about the politics part of this, because he was going around. We get all the press releases from the governor all last year, and even I think maybe even before last year, but certainly all last year, going around listening sessions, people's maps, etc. They had to have known that when we present this, that not only Republicans say, nope, not going to happen, or, yeah, we don't, what? And also a lot of Democrats also. They had to have known that was going to be the answer. So why do it?
I really don't understand. I think probably, now I'm just purely speculating here. But I'm guessing that Governor Evers and his team said, we have invested so much time in this that we do have to put something forward. So we're going to put this forward. I think they had spent so much time and energy, as you just referred to, going all over the state, that I think they probably figured, hey, we got to put this forward.
That's kind of what I was thinking. Yeah.
but with I mean, there's people that really look at this redistricting process, and the things that it has to follow, meeting the Voting Rights Act, contiguity, things like that. And from the moment it came out, they were just like, this map will never stand muster in the courts. And then you had these Democrat legislators, Senator Lena Taylor, 17 Democrats in the House who said, no, we aren't even going to vote for this. So it really went down in flames.
Sure.
And
So, sorry, go ahead.
So, I mean, hopefully the Supreme Court will sort this out, and we'll get those maps done here in the next month, and we'll all know what they look like. Boundaries will change in northern Wisconsin, a little bit of a loss of population in some places, and so some of those districts have to expand. I think there's also some districts that the legislature, when they looked at it, they said, hey, we can do fewer split municipalities.
Oh, good.
Which is one criteria that is important. You can't get completely away from, regardless of what the map is, you can't completely get away from split municipalities, but you really try to limit them. That way you keep communities of interest there as much as possible.
So the least change approach, that's what, and I've heard that before as well, Supreme Court, that's what they're that's kind of our mission, our goal here. We don't want to reinvent the map necessarily. So when this is all finished and it is the least changed approach, there's always going to be one side who's not going to be happy. I'm going to assume that's going to be the Democrats, or is this even a Republican thing going, you know what, we still don't like that either? Like, is anyone going to be happy with this, or is everyone going to be like, it is what it is?
You will never make everyone happy, and that includes Democrats and Republicans.
Okay.
That not everybody will be happy, and that's how it always works, regardless of how it's done, whether it's passed by the legislature and simply signed by the governor or the courts intervene. There is never an instance where everybody's happy with their maps.
That's my policy at the House. Yeah, I make policies. I try to encourage, how many people will be upset with this, and that's usually when I'm going to go with, because I like controversy and storylines, even at home.
So Ben, it's the opposite at our house. I always try to be the good guy with our 3 daughters, and my wife, man, does she get mad at me?
You're a better man than I. So you also mentioned here on the federal level, so now I think I'm starting to piece this together. But I do have to ask you, I'm sorry, we're talking about that this is a state level issue. You don't have a vote in this.
That's correct.
Unless something that I think you had said, please correct me if I'm wrong, that you were voting on something that was a part of the thing this morning that would actually take this out of states' hands and put it in the federal level. Now, that's not the Republican Tom Tiffany I know. Taking it out of the states' hands, why would that be a good idea?
It's not a good idea, and that's why it's one of many reasons why I'm voting against this.
Oh,
bill
against
this
it. Okay, I clearly missed it. I'm like, that doesn't sound like.
Yeah, it's one of a number of provisions in this bill where it federalizes elections. So it takes the redistricting process away from the states. It does not allow you to have photo ID. It allows ballots to be counted 7 days after the election. There's this whole series of provisions that are in this bill, and I just disagree with. I mean, most bills you find something that you like. Yeah. There's nothing in this bill that's going to lead to better election integrity. If we want to see a replay of the November 2020 elections, election after election, then you would vote for this bill, because it does not lead to greater election integrity, and that's why I'll vote against it. And that's why I'm hoping it will pass today, because the Democrats have the vote in the House, the votes in the House. But I'm hoping that the Senate will stop it.
Sure. Morning. I watched the morning news for the first 20 minutes. NBC, ABC, Good Morning America, whatever. First 20 minutes, I always like to watch those. And every morning I see, and even online too, McCarthy, January 6th. And I think I even saw something about Pelosi. I think it's like the House gets changed and the Republicans take that over, then I think something about McCarthy would be interested, or I don't know how that process works. But a lot of this is still tied to the January 6th thing. Are you a part of any of this? These I don't know if there's hearings or what's going on in Washington, D.C. regarding the January 6th situation and this committee. Are you a part of that at all?
I'm not. So you have the January 6th commission that was put together by by Speaker Pelosi, and it was actually it was pretty interesting that well, there's people, all kinds of people saying good morning.
Yeah.
Karen, Barb, Sharon. Hey, good morning to
Yeah,
all of
and
you.
just let you guys know, if you have a question, please just put it in the comments. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, fire away. Um, Speaker Pelosi put together this commission and committee within, it's a special committee within the House of Representatives. And normally what happens is the Speaker, as the majority leader, she will get more members on the committee because they're in the majority, and that's how it works. And then the minority chooses who they get to put on the committee. Speaker Pelosi did not allow us to do that in this instance. She did not let our leader, the minority leader, Kevin McCarthy, be able to name who he wants on the committee, because he wanted to put on Representative Jim Banks from Indiana, Representative Jim Jordan from Ohio. She denied him, Speaker Pelosi, denied him the ability to be able to do that. That really is pretty unprecedented, where you do not allow the minority to be able to put the people they want to on the committee. And it really comes across as illegitimate from the start when you do when you do something like that. The other thing that I have a real problem with the January 6th committee as promulgated by Speaker Pelosi is they are not allowing review of the communications in her office leading up to January 6th and including January 6th. So remember, the Speaker, regardless of who it is, they're in charge of security at the Capitol, because the Sergeant at Arms answers to the Speaker of the House. So the Speaker of the House has that. It's the Speaker. It's part of the Speaker's responsibility. And we thought it was appropriate that we should know what communications were going in and out of the Speaker's office leading up to January 6th and including January 6th. She won't release that. She made that part of the commission's policies, that you will not get any communications. So here you have the committee saying, we want to hear from President Trump. We want to hear from Steve Bannon. We want to hear from these various legislators, whether it's Jim Jordan, Kevin McCarthy, whoever the case may be. But yet they're saying it's off limits to see the communications from the Speaker. Let's get the full information out there. I'm all for having a committee that gets all of the information out there. Let's figure out what was going on through this whole process. Yet the Speaker will not reveal the information that she has. And I believe there's a reason for this. And this is speculation, but I believe the reason for that is I believe in the days leading up to January 6th, there were communications from law enforcement, various agencies, and the Capitol Police that were saying to the Speaker's office, you need to be ready for January 6th. There's going to be a lot of people in Washington, D.C. Let's make sure we're prepared. And Capitol Police were clearly not prepared on January 6th.
Is that substantiated in any way? I mean, is there, so that's your opinion. I believe that this information was there and maybe we're not prepared for that, or is that speculation?
Yeah, the FBI did notify, I believe, I can't remember if it was the Norfolk office. I can't remember which city it was out here on the East Coast, but one of the FBI offices was raising concerns about this as soon as like January 3rd. And so there were, and perhaps even earlier than that, so there was correspondence that, hey, we're really concerned by various law enforcement agencies. And you look at the mayor of Washington, D.C., she actually called in the National Guard. And I believe President Trump even was saying that, hey, we should get the National Guard ready for January 6th, just in case. Let's make sure. There's going to be tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people in Washington, D.C. Let's make sure nothing bad happens. One other little piece of information there that I really want to see in regards to this, and by the way, I'm for revealing all the information. Let's get it all out there. The American public can handle it. They can see everything that's going on. Let's make sure we get it all out there. But one of the things that's really interesting, my colleague, Thomas Massey from Kentucky, at one of the hearings that I was at on the Judiciary Committee, he asked Attorney General Merrick Garland, were there FBI agents in the crowd that day? Were there FBI agents that were in the Capitol that day that were undercover?
And
the Attorney General would not answer that question. And if you look at a hearing this week in the United States Senate, the same question was asked. of the FBI. And the FBI would not answer the question. Were there FBI agents in the crowd in the Capitol that day? And we are hearing crickets in regards to that. I believe that question needs to be answered also.
Well, I'm sorry. I want to stop you right there real quick. Why? So my first thought is like, FBI, they don't want to tell people what they're doing all the time. But why is it important?
Right.
If they were in the crowd, how does that, why is that important?
Especially in light of what we found out about in regards to the summer of 2020, when Governor Whitmer, if you remember, Governor Whitmer in Michigan, supposedly there was a plot to kidnap her.
Oh, I remember that.
You remember that?
Yes, I do.
It was about a year and a half ago.
A whole bunch of people
And
got
they
arrested
said
for it too, I think.
it's these right-wing extremists and all the rest. It turns out of the about 20 people that have been identified in regards to that plot, in regards to Governor Whitmer, about a dozen of them are FBI informants. What's going on here? And so people are beginning to go, hold it, FBI, what are you doing here? Furthermore, there is video of a man named Ray Epps. He is known as, he's one of the people that's in the Proud Boys, known as a right-wing group. Ray Epps was there that day. The committee refuses to call Ray Epps forward to testify what he was doing that day, because there is video showing him urging people on into the Capitol. And he was once on the most wanted list for the FBI. He's no longer on the list. And so people are just saying, we got questions here and we really need some answers. And that's where I'm at this point is, let's get all the information out there and let the American public see it and let the American public decide what really happened on January 6th.
Yeah, and let us know what happened with JFK as well, as long as you're at it. If you can get that done,
exactly.
Get that one.
Exactly.
We have something here from Patty Schochter. Oh, Patty. Hold on, where'd it go? Hillary testified.
Yes. Yeah. So Patty's note here is.
Oh, there's another one. I'm sorry, Patty. I'll get to your other one as well. Apologies. Go ahead.
So that would be Trump's FBI. So they knew about it. So I don't view that as it's President Trump's FBI or it's President Biden's FBI. The FBI has always been known as pretty nonpartisan. They're law enforcement. They treat everybody the same. The FBI was raising the threat level prior to January 6th. One of their field offices was notifying Washington, D.C., both the mayor's office, as well as, I think, possibly the speaker's office, and saying, hey, there is you guys need to be ready because there's some bad actors that are going to come into Washington, D.C., and they're going to use that rally as a pretext to raise hell. And that's exactly what they did. I just want to see the information. I don't care if it's President Trump's FBI, President Biden's FBI. I just want the information so that we can have a full review.
Do you think you'll get it?
I hope so. If we get the majority back, we will bring in people that were involved that day and under oath question them and ask them, okay, what happened here? So I'm hoping that'll happen. I would hope that the current majority would do the same in the Judiciary Committee, but they've not shown an appetite for it. I think it's really important to get that information out. The American people can handle the truth.
Question here from Dan, and there's a question about Liz Cheney from Patty I want to ask, but would you cooperate with the January 6th committee if asked?
I've not been asked to do that. I would have to review. So first of all, I would have to see what the questions are, things like that, before I would decide what I'm going to do. All I can say is I was on the floor of the committee on the floor that day, participating in the process. I was taken off the floor by security. And
I remember. I think I even messaged you, or I sent a signal to you, or something. Shortly after that, I'm like, "Dude, are you okay?" And I think, hopefully, I'm not speaking out of turn here, but I think you said something. I think it was you that had said that you were under a desk or somewhere for a brief time. Was that you, right? 'Cause I only know one other person over there, but you had said everything was fine and everything's okay. But it's kind of a chaotic moment right now.
It was. And by the way, for some people out there, they may say, don't try to minimize this, Congressman Tiffany. I don't. It was a riot. Now, some people will say it was an insurrection. They were trying to take over the government and all the rest. No one has been charged with insurrection. And the video and stuff that I've seen, if that's all it takes to take over our federal government, wow, we are in a much bigger trouble than what we think. But it clearly was a riot. Those people that participated in that riot, that did damage, that harmed people, that came into the Capitol and should not have, they should be charged appropriately and they should be prosecuted.
Hey, so are you afraid of Liz Cheney? Patty Schuchner wants to know.
Yeah, no, I'm not afraid of Liz Cheney, and I actually know. I mean, I know Liz, and I've spoken to her numerous times, and all the rest. And I don't have a problem with Liz Cheney being on the January 6th committee. Here's the problem I have with the January 6th committee: the minority always, and Patty knows this, having been in the legislature, the minority gets to name their members that are going to be on the committee.
And I didn't know that.
Speaker Pelosi denied us the ability to do it. Now, she can do that. She has the power to do it, but it's something that has not been done in the past, and it doesn't lead to lending legitimacy to a committee, regardless of what committee it is, when you don't let the minority be able to put their own members on.
Yeah. So we're already just over our time, but certainly, is there something else that you wanted to make sure that we talked about that we didn't get a chance to, or is there something else that you're working on, or a bill, or something that's coming up that you're looking forward to, specifically in Washington, D.C.?
Yeah, as we hit the new year here, a bunch of things that that we're looking at doing. Really looking forward to going to Siren tonight, joining Burnett County law enforcement. That would be really good. Yeah. There's a couple of things this week that we were talking about extensively. It was a really big deal when Verso closed that paper mill down in Wisconsin Rapids, and we talked about it before. Yep. They have now merged, I think it was more of an acquisition, by a Swedish company called Billerud-Korsnäs. And I'm really looking forward to having meetings with the executive team of Billerud to see if they're going to reopen that Wisconsin Rapids mill. That Wisconsin Rapids mill when it was running, took up to a quarter of the pulpwood consumed in Wisconsin. It was huge, and it's having huge impacts as far as both employment, 1,000 people at that mill, all the secondary employment with foresters, loggers, logging truckers, all those people. We're going to lose a lot of jobs if that mill does not reopen. And it also affects the environment because it affects our forestry management here in Wisconsin. So that's a big issue that I'm following up of regional interest. And also the sale of the CN rail lines, what used to be Wisconsin Central, for those that remember it. A short line railroad was sold to Watco, another short line operator. CN did a horrible job for 20 years. That's Canadian National out of Montreal. Did a horrible job of running those old Wisconsin Central lines for 20 years, ran them in the ground. And I had my first meeting with Watco this week, hopefully getting that back operating the way it should be, because it can be critical for economic development here in northern Wisconsin.
Hey, going back to that redistricting real quick, I forgot to ask you, are you waiting for the redistricting? Because that would affect the 7th Wisconsin, what's coming up. That would affect your congressional district, would it not?
Yes, it will.
Are you waiting to see that before you say, yeah, I'm running? I don't know if you've sent anything out. We haven't received anything, but are you running?
So my intention is that I will probably run. I've not made an official announcement, and redistricting probably is not going to factor into my decision. My decision is more, can I do the job for the constituents of the 7th Congressional District, northern and western Wisconsin? Does it work for my family? All those things that go into it. And I don't see any reason why I won't run, but I've not officially announced.
Yeah, what am I going to do on the second Thursday of every month if I can't do a Breakfast with Tiffany show? So I think you should. Oh, and good morning to my dad. Thanks, Dad. Very nice. I also love that you brought up, you were talking about the mill, and that they, pulp tree something? I don't know anything about these things. What was it? They produce.
So we grow a lot of pulpwood, which is mostly the softwoods that we have.
Yeah.
That gets made into paper.
Oh, sure.
And so we grow a lot of pulpwood. And plus, when you have mixed forests like we have in Wisconsin, both hardwoods and softwoods, Some of the hardwoods that go through a mill, there sometimes be some, call it waste product. And these paper mills like Verso can take that product and turn it into the paper and boxes and stuff like that they use. So it's really a critical mill for how we manage forests in Wisconsin and the species of wood that we grow. This mill is really important. And I'm hopeful that this company, Billerud, out of Sweden, is going to reopen that mill. And if they're not going to reopen it, what I'm going to urge them to do is to sell it. Sell it to a firm that will reopen that mill because it is critical for Wisconsin.
I just love the fact that you talked about that it's also good for the environment. Republican talking about great for the environment. I love it. The show has everything today.
Well, it is great for the environment.
Yeah.
And I would say tomorrow I'm going to be talking about the environment when I'm over in the town of Manitowish Waters in Vilas County, where there's a lake over there called Dead Pike Lake, which was a beautiful lake. And as a result of some things the state did back in the 1950s, they now have all kinds of iron flock in that lake, and the state refuses to fix it. And I'm going to have a press conference with a couple of my a couple of the state legislators tomorrow. That lake needs to be fixed. I've been working on it for 10 years when I was in the legislature. The DNR still has not done it, and we're going to highlight it once again. We Republicans care about the environment, Ben.
That's not what media says. Nope.
We just believe that there are trade-offs that are involved. Yeah. And if you look at it as just, it's either the economy or the environment, that's not how it works. We can have both a strong economy and a clean environment. In fact, I believe we have to have a strong economy to be able to pay for those environmental programs that are so important to making sure we have a clean.
Do you have time for one more question here? I just, if not, that's perfectly fine. But Adam,
I haven't gotten the high sign for my staff, so fire away.
All right, here's the question. Republican South Carolina Congressman Tom Rice said last month that he regrets his vote against certifying the electoral vote last year. Do you regret your vote? So I'm assuming you must have voted for that.
He voted against.
Oops, sorry.
No, I don't regret my vote.
Okay, there you go.
No.
All right.
Hey, by the way, Ben,
yeah.
Also, there's going to be listening sessions coming up in, I think, 2 weeks. We're going to go back out on the road.
Nice.
And we will be letting people know. If you get the Tiffany telegram, you'll see them in there. My office will be sending out correspondence. We don't have them all tied down yet exactly where they're going to be and the dates and stuff. But that's coming last week of January, more listening sessions that I will be out.
And how do people get the Tiffany, subscribe to the Tiffany telegram?
Yeah, just go to our website, go to Tom Tiffany Congress,
What? Just
Congressman Tiffany. Just go, yeah. And then you'll see a button on there. Sure, yeah. You'll see a button on there to be able to subscribe to the Tiffany telegram. It doesn't cost anything. And we send that to your email inbox every week.
Love it. And so you're in Washington, D.C. now. You had a floor session this morning, very early, and now... and you are actually going to be in Northwest Wisconsin by tonight in Burnett County.
If all goes well, I'm going to be voting in the next half hour. If all goes well, I'm going to get on a flight out of D.C. about 12:30. And if all goes well, I'm going to land in Minneapolis at 2. And if all goes well, I will be in Siren at 7 o'clock.
Thanks, man.
Or whenever it starts, double check the time. It's either 6 or 7 o'clock.
I'll find out. I'll call Tracy Finch, the sheriff, and then I'll send you a text. All right. I'm Ben Dryden, and you've been watching Breakfast with Tiffany. Special thank you to, of course, Wisconsin's 7th Congressional District Representative Tom Tiffany for once again making himself available for questions and speaking with us today. Oh, you know what? Dave Wilson said, because he's going, he says 6 o'clock. So there you go. 6 o'clock. That's Central Time.
Thank you.
So yeah, we host these live podcasts with Tom on the second Thursday of every month. So make sure you join us next month for our latest episode of Breakfast with Tiffany. Until then, stay safe. And he's gone. Stay positive and have a blessed day.